Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everybody. Today we are speaking with one of this year's Arnold Classic competitors who has been competing since 2013. She earned her pro card in 2015 at NPC Universe. She's a coach to 12 bikini athletes under Fit Body Fusion Team, and she also has a degree in dental hygiene, which has been her career that she's been working in for 9 years now, full time. So I'm super excited to have her on. How are you doing, Jessie Palmer?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here. And I always start every single episode just asking, what is one thing that you do or maybe a ritual that you have right before your heel hits the stage?
That's a tough one. I guess it's just really, it's not really like a ritual necessarily, other than, eating like a pump up snack and pumping up, kind of just going over your individual routine or just different things in your posing, making sure that your number's on, your suit's in the right place, hair's, all neat. But I wouldn't say there's a ritual. It's just more so staying calm. I don't necessarily listen to music or anything. I just pay attention to, when they're calling for us. Ritual wise, I guess I would just say, just try to stay calm. This past year, I actually became really close friends with another competitor, Jordan Lee Pineda. And we did a lot of shows this past year together. So her and I kind of just get in the zone and we really just kind of hang out with each other. But definitely before prejudging, I'm kind of a ball of nerves and just try to stay calm.
I love it. That's awesome. I love that, at any stage in competing, you can still get the nerves regardless of how many shows you've done.
Yeah, I think I counted that I've done 20 pro shows, 7 amateur. And to be honest, I still get nervous. There hasn't been a show like before prejudging that I'm not like, butterflies, anxious, nervous. I don't really think it goes away. Maybe it's different for other people, but I think that's kind of a sign that, it still gets your heart pumping and your adrenaline going. It's something that I love. So, I don't mind the nerves. I think it's a good thing.
Oh, I totally agree. I think it's like exactly what we need in that moment to really own that stage and it almost brings us into that present moment really in a strong way. So I think that's awesome. And like you said, you have done a lot of shows. And I think we'll just dive right into this question. I was going to kind of wait a little, but I'm just going to go for it. When you think about your experiences as a pro and competing in 20 different IFBB Pro shows, and of course the 7 amateur shows as well, what challenges have you faced that you feel have actually prepared you to make this year your year?
I guess the biggest challenge that I've always kind of come into is that I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a lot of muscle. Everything I've built from the ground up. I didn't really start with a good solid muscle foundation. My past 5 years of competing, it's a work in progress, and I haven't, in my opinion, I haven't had it easy. I haven't had a lot of shows where they're just handing me first place or second place or third place. If you look at a lot of my pro placements, I'm usually placing like 4th, 5th. I'm usually in the first call out. Same thing with my NPC career too. I'm not a shoo-in, I guess you could say. Everything as far as placement goes or how well I do at shows, it's something I've really worked hard for. I know a lot of girls just have like these amazing genetics or this amazing like foundation of muscle from whatever sports or anything that they did prior to competing. But everything that I've, built body wise or competition career wise is something I've worked really, really hard for. So I think that's kind of my overall challenge. And this is just a year that, all of those 4 to 5 years leading into this year has just really given me that experience and just that overall mental strength that I think I'm going to need to get through this year.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. What's your ultimate goal with this year? Like when you look at it, like what do you really want to get out of it?
um, Something that Jamie D. Bernard, my coach, that coaches me through Fit Body Fusion, and I talked about a year or so ago. I had three main goals. Those were to win a pro show. That was number one, which I
Mhm.
did accomplish in August last year. My next goal, and really my main goal of all overall competing, was to compete at the Arnold as a pro competitor, and that's something that I'm going to achieve in about 6 weeks.
Woohoo!
And then my third goal is to make it to Olympia. I mean, a lot of pro bikini athletes or even amateurs, that's their main goal, is making it to the Olympia stage. But really, more for me was winning a pro show, just solidifying, that I am a top pro. I can place first at a show, just kind of like confirming that to myself and I guess to others as well. But most importantly is to me is competing at the Arnold, and I'm about to do that. So it's something that's really special because it's here in Columbus. I live in Columbus, born and raised in Ohio, and I've been going for years. But ultimately, at the end of this year, I'd love to make it on the Olympia stage, but we'll just kind of have to see how things shake out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that the Arnold really is a dream come true for you. And it sounds like this is something that you have had your heart set on for a while. So, what is the feedback that you're working with to step on stage and hopefully continue to get placed in top and earn points? I'm sure you can you earn points from the Arnold into the Olympia?
Yes, yeah. If you place top five, it's actually one of the top tier shows. So you get a lot more points than if you were to just do, like, I do a lot of Spectrum Fitness production shows, a lot of Tim Gardner shows. Those are more so the lower tier. So, first place gets 8 points, second place gets fourth, and so on, or
Mm.
4 points. The Arnold, I can't remember the breakdown exactly, but you get a lot more points when you place in the top five.
Wow, that's awesome. And thanks for explaining that. So, what is it that you're looking to bring to the stage based on maybe past feedback that you've gotten?
Oh, okay. So past feedback, my consistent feedback is always just building my glutes. Um, I I think that I'm a really realistic person, and I know that. Just looking at my own physique, I can remove myself from the situation, look at my own progress photos, look at my stage shots, compare myself to others, and I know that that's my weakness. It's something that I work the hardest on. They're stubborn. It's not something that I had that, overall, like I mentioned, I didn't have that like overall, muscle maturity foundation when I first started. It's something I've had to just build and build and build. So that's my biggest feedback always, is just that depth, that thickness in the muscle belly, more so front to back. Um, and just making sure that those tie-ins pop. Other than that, my last show that I did in the fall, November 2018, Sandy, our head judge, her main feedback was not only that, which that's what she always tells me and what I'm always aware of, but also just to kind of refresh everything, build back up, upper body, just everything, because I had been competing for so long last year. So it was that just overall refresh of the body, but especially the glutes.
Totally. We're actually hearing that a lot in the past few episodes of girls needing to take some time to actually reset the body because they competed so much. And I mean, it obviously paid off for you now that you're going to be going to the Arnold. But I know that process coming out of so many shows is intense. It can be rough, especially if you've been competing back to back to back. So, what was your process like coming out of the show to reset your body enough? And then I know you immediately like found out you're going to be at the Arnold. So, what was your process like?
Um, I can't remember exactly how many weeks I had as, my social off season between when I competed in November and when we started prepping for the Arnold, but it really wasn't a lot of time. It was maybe like maybe shy of 2 months even. And that's not an off season, in my opinion.
Mm-mm.
It's not at all. I mean, it was enough to get things kind of back in order as far as just kind of enjoying different events, whether that's, date nights with my husband, not, paying attention to tracking a macro, or enjoying like things like Thanksgiving or a family reunion, just stuff like that. So the mental reset was there, which was really nice. I mean, I still reversed out of that November show. But the goal more so for this mini little off season was to get my body weight back up and get my food back up, just so that I was feeling good. Hormones were refreshed, mentally refreshed, and just really build again as much as I could build in 2 months. I mean, I know it's not a lot, but hopefully I was able to just restore, my muscle bellies and restore my mental strength and just metabolism and hormones. The main goal really wasn't only to, build back up, get food back up, metabolism, but also to get my hormones back in order, because that is something that's really important. I think it was only a few weeks after I was done off the stage that I actually got my cycle back and everything. So everything's in good order there. That's one thing that I know not everyone experiences, that losing their cycle when they're competing, but I always have. And mine always comes back. Literally, it's usually like 3 to 4 weeks after I'm done competing. It's like my body just knows. It's like, okay, we're done.
That's great. I mean, at least you know your body now that it's like, okay, it'll come back. I went 2 years without it. So now I'm in the phase of like trying to maintain it for a little bit before I even think about stepping on stage again.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know how it is. It's definitely rewarding when it comes back. And I think it's awesome that you're promoting like, yeah, like let's bring it back. This is a good thing. And now that you're back in prep, is that something that is no longer happening, or does it usually go away after a certain amount of time into prep?
So I mean, I had my period about a month after I was done competing, and it's actually already gone.
Oh my
I already
gosh.
missed. So I only had one between last season and the start of this season.
Wow.
So I mean, not necessarily ideal, but when you get an invite to Arnold, I mean, it's not something that you pass up. It was
No.
a risk that we knew that we were taking. Competing all year in 2018, applying and really hoping for this opportunity. But I mean, overall, and especially in my whole career, it's something that I always stress. Your health comes first. So there's never going to be the time where, say, I get Arnold's my main focus right now, just bringing my best there and doing some shows after that and kind of seeing where we are at in points, but more importantly, seeing where we're at health wise.
Mm.
So like if my body is not looking fresh at all, if my hormones are out of whack, or, my metabolism just shuts down, then we're going to listen to it. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to, run my body to the ground just to make it to Olympia, when really Arnold is my main priority. So I'm going to bring my best to that, and then we'll reevaluate after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that that's something that you value so much. And it's also like gives you that longevity. So if it's not the Olympia this year, well, there's next year too. Um, you mentioned that because you live in Ohio, this is really special for you. Is there any other
Mhm.
reason why you've always dreamt of going to the Arnold, or place that as something like a major goal of yours?
Um, I mean, I really just fell in love with the Arnold years and years ago when I was competing there in cheerleading and dance. My first time ever going to the Arnold Sports Festival was actually probably middle school age.
Wow.
Um, I just remember competing there for dance and cheerleading, and kind of just, I mean, if you're ever there, anyone who's ever been there, like it's just a spectacle of people and bodies, and it's just a whole different world. So I remember being, middle school age and just seeing like all of these, figure or physique competitors, bodybuilders, and it was just like a whole different world. And really just going every year since that, in the high school years, and also when I was in college and even after that. It's just a stage that I've loved. I mean, it's just beautiful to me, especially that it is in Ohio. it's just something that's special to this city, but also just kind of takes me back to, I don't know, my competitive history in cheer and dance. It kind of morphed into the sport of bodybuilding. It's one of the things that I really love about competing is just kind of showcasing all of your hard work. And that's something that we did as, competitive cheerleaders and dancers. It was the same thing. You got
Yeah.
up there on a sparkly stage, big bright lights. You've got judges looking at you. It's a good adrenaline rush. So, I guess what makes it special to me is it's a stage that I've looked at for so long, and I didn't compete there as an amateur because at the time, it didn't get you anywhere. There wasn't a pro card on the line. That's a little different now. Now, bikini girls and other athletes can be awarded their pro card. So once I turned pro, that was, the next goal was to make it there as a pro.
That's awesome. And you did it.
Yes.
So, what's that application process like for the show? Like because I know like don't you have to submit an application? And I'm curious as to what that process is or what's on the application.
Oh yeah. You know what? One other thing that makes it special is
Yeah.
that it is here in Ohio. My closest family and friends, they're actually going to be there in the audience
Oh
seeing me
my
compete,
gosh. I just got the
for the
chills.
for the first time. So that's something that's really special to me.
Oh.
Um, just kind of representing and just being, someone from Ohio, from there, and having my family and loved ones there to like watch me do what I love, because they've only seen me in pictures, videos, heard about it, but never, see me live in living color on stage. So that's gonna be pretty cool.
Mm.
But as far as the application process goes, they did put something that was new this year. I don't think it was a requirement in the past, but you had to place top 5 at a 2018 pro show. So that was really the only kind of stipulation that they put in there, a requirement.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't even think you couldn't even apply if you didn't place top 5 last year. That
Wow.
was new. Other than that, they asked for 3 photos. They asked for a competition resume. So things that I put on there for my resume were any of my notable placements. So anything top 6 and above, I put on there. I also put like where I earned my pro card. They asked for a competition biography, basically, which I gave a little bit of background for, my professional career as a hygienist, but also where I grew up, kind of why I love Arnold, as well as my competition biography, and a cover letter. And then you just
Wow.
wait.
That's intense. Do you know how many applications they get each year?
I am not sure. I'm not positive, actually. I
Yeah.
would guess that it's an amount, but they did it a lot faster this year. It was only like maybe a week to week and a half from
Oh
the
my
time that
gosh.
the deadline was to when we found out. This was actually my second year applying. I applied the year before and didn't get it, but they took like 3 weeks or so to let us know. So it was,
Wow. That's wild. Well, that's super cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's like something I've always like, I'm like, what's this application even about? Like that's really just like a job. Well, I guess it is. Don't they pay you and fly you out and everything too?
we'll get a per diem, which is really nice, which is awesome. They also pay for your flight, which they won't be paying for mine because I'm right here.
Dang it.
And then they pay for your hotel, and that's it. So hotel, per diem, and flight.
Wow. And can you explain to us what a per diem is?
Per diem meaning you get a certain amount of money per day. So I would guess that it's just Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm not sure if Sunday's included. I want to say it's like $75.
That's
So
awesome.
I think it's mostly to cover costs for maybe like any grocery stuff that you might need, maybe even like things like Uber, or Lyft, or taxi, transportation type stuff, would be
That's
my guess.
really cool. That's awesome. So this is like such an exciting moment that's coming up. And for everybody listening, it's going to be like 4 weeks out by then. So very,
Oh
very
yeah.
exciting. And
Yeah.
um, you've been prepping now for it for a little while. Since what, the end of November?
Actually December 23rd.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh. So almost a month.
We Yeah, we officially started my prep, which December 23rd is the day before Christmas Eve. It was a little, to be honest, it was a little hard to like wrap my mind around. The
Yeah.
first like I don't know what it is. I mean, it never gets easier to me as far as like just making it through the holidays. If you are prepping through the holidays, um, I mean the holidays and family things. It's very food centered. It's very,
Mhm.
not just like the social aspect of it, but the emotional aspect of being with family and holidays and whatnot. So it was just a little hard. I
I
needed like
understand.
4 or 5 days to like get out of my own head, and then I was fine.
Come to reality, like come to terms with it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and not at all that I'm like ungrateful that obviously like this is the biggest honor ever to be able to compete at Arnold, but it was definitely a mind shift, and I would have thought that it was going to be like so simple for her to be like, all right, it's time to go, like let's go, we're doing prep now. But it just took a little bit because like we talked about, my off season wasn't that long, and after competing all of 2018, like I really needed that time.
Yes, absolutely. I totally get it. I prepped through the holidays last year and it was really an interesting experience. It was tough. I was super motivated and I had a show in February, so I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And it really kicked off my whole competition season, so I'm really grateful I did it. But I know
Yeah.
it's kind of tough. It almost takes you away from the seasonal aspect. It's strange. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I totally understand what you're saying. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think anyone will understand it unless they go through it. Like it's different. And then
Yeah.
this year I wasn't prepping during the holidays, so I got to experience both ends immediately, and I was like, this is not that. I mean, either way, it's not like a big deal.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't trade this opportunity for anything. It was just I don't even, and I was having like this mental battle in my mind, like why is this such a big deal for you to for you to be prepping right now? Like this is the biggest like show of your life. But I don't know. I can't really explain it fine now, but it was just those like first like 4 or 5 days when she was
Yeah.
like, "All right, we're prepping."
Almost like you had to like get back into that identity of like, okay, like we're doing this, it's on, like I'm back, off season's
Yeah, I
over.
just had to put like the headgear back on.
Yeah, totally. I understand that feeling. And sometimes it's just as hard to take it off. So um
Absolutely.
you you pride yourself on, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier with the macros, how when you took some time off in that 8 weeks or so, it was like you didn't have to worry about counting every single macro, but you are a flexible dieter and you've always been a flexible dieter and you've prided yourself on this. And so I'd love to hear how this has helped you in preps and in off seasons and why you personally believe in this approach. And I know you also coach this way. So I'd love to just get some background or some insight on that.
As far as, prepping or reverse dieting or just doing lifestyle with if it fits your macros or macros approach, flexible dieting, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the girls that I coach and the way that I kind of do my own dieting or nutrition, it's always going to be 80% whole foods. And then you've got your 20% that can be more fun, maybe processed foods, things like protein bars, things that are maybe just quick, especially for a work day. Versus if you were to do like a specific meal plan, you've got your coach saying, eat this at this time, eat that, don't eat this. It's just more realistic. It's more livable, and then you're not, necessarily demonizing foods or putting foods off limits. It's more realistic and livable, and it's also a way that I think allows not only me to have learned, but also my clients that I coach to have learned just a right way to eat, I guess you could say. Not everyone's going to be perfect. You're not always going to be grabbing for, um, proteins and veggies and clean carbs. You're going to be in those times where maybe you've got a family and you're running around and you've just got to grab something quick. That's just more livable and makes more sense to me rather than having someone tell you what to eat, when to eat. I think it's more of an educational kind of lifestyle approach. I've really learned, what my body feels good on, what I like to eat, and just, I don't know, figuring out nutrition. Before I started counting macros and before I started competing, I ate like shit, to be honest. It was just kind of like, fast food or just kind of whatever. I wasn't ever necessarily like overweight or unhealthy looking, but I wasn't giving my body proper nutrition, I guess you could say. So tracking macros is more of a learning experience. It really just helps me to understand what a carb, what a fat, what a protein is, and how that affects the body and kind of what you can do, like your own little science experiment with if you eat this, this, and that, or how much of this, this, and that, then you get this, how you feel or how you look.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very telling of what your body's responding to and how it's responding to it. I personally follow meal plans for preps, and then into an improvement season, I usually keep it the same, but I follow macro based. Like right now, it's all macro based, but I eat the same thing. Anyways, like I just have always been that way, and I like it. But I agree with you in the sense of it doesn't demonize foods. If I could go back in time to when I first started my fitness journey, man, I would have told myself you do not have to restrict all these different foods only to then binge like one day of the week. Like
Yeah.
that's so bad. It's crazy, and yet it's a huge reality within this industry. Not competing, but fitness in general. Of course that carries over into competing, but I'm generalizing this. Like there's a lot of people who will just sell meal plans. It's the same meal plan they're giving to everybody. It's very cookie cutter. It's not healthy in the long term sense. So I think it's great what you're doing and that you've been able to find so much knowledge in your body because of it, and of course in nutrition in general. And now you're sharing this with other women as well as a fit body fusion coach. So how did that arise? Like how did you even get into the coaching aspect of this? I know that's with Jamie's your coach, and she's the founder of it, right?
Yeah, she's the founder and owner of Fit Body Fusion. I came to start working with Jamie in January of 2016. Even before we started working together, I had been coaching girls for posing, specifically, never coaching as far as like training and nutrition and all of that. But she knew that right off the bat. And then probably like a year or two after we were working together, I had just kind of mentioned to her, like, maybe I'd be interested in coaching, but it was never something that I wanted to just jump right into, say being only like 1, 2 or so many years into my competitive career, because there's so much to learn and so much to know about prepping someone else versus, you just competing yourself. There's just a lot of times that I had seen, okay, someone did a show once or twice. Okay, they're a coach now. Like I never wanted that to be me. I wanted to have a really good foundation in NPC, in IFBB, be notable and experienced, but also have a really great understanding of just overcoming little obstacles that we ran into with my body and with my preps, and how did we fix that. But really, once I started to decide that I wanted to become a coach and start to really help girls prep more so than just posing, we kind of dove into that, and she's been a mentor for me. Anytime that we did get, between a rock and a hard place with one of my girls, I would reach out to her and I'd be like, hey, what would you do in this situation? It's something that she always is overseeing, not only me, but any of our coaches. She's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience. She's been around for a long time, not only, her own competitions, her own experience, but she's been coaching for a long, long time. So she's really kind of helped me understand how to coach someone else. And it's definitely been a really great experience to coach others, like we were talking about with just different approaches, whether it's a meal plan or macros. Everyone's body functions differently. Everyone's body responds differently. So that's kind of exciting for me to see the way, my body responds. I know it really well, but some of my other girls, the way that their body responds is totally different. It's definitely a learning experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that you can share that experience with us because we hear all the time, everybody responds differently, everybody responds differently. But then it seems like some processes are so similar, but then, it sometimes comes closer to the show and people are doing very different things than another person. But to hear it from a coach, it's really cool because you get to take that perspective that you're used to being coached by. So now you get to see both ends. And I'm sure that's helped you a lot in your own competing. I would imagine, anyways.
Oh yeah, it absolutely has. It's definitely. I mean, the end goal is always the same, whether you're in NPC or IFBB. The way that you want to look on stage, the end goal is the same, but how everyone gets to that stage and looking, the way that you need to look, it's totally different. And that's kind of the beauty of it all. So it always had made me cringe when I would hear of coaches just giving, all of these girls the same plan. And it's just like, there's no way. There's different backgrounds, different histories, different heights, different, muscle mass. Everyone's totally different. So
Yeah.
for me, that's another thing with the way that Jamie coaches me, with the way that I coach, which is the macro approach. I mean, it's very individual. And another thing that I was going to say is a lot of what I do, like you mentioned, you follow a meal plan, especially when you're prepping. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that at all. That's something that I actually do throughout the week for, Monday through Thursday, my work days as a hygienist. I usually eat the same thing. I'm just repeating.
Mm-hmm.
So I do actually have a meal plan 4 days of the week, but I choose it. I choose what's in there. I look in
Yeah.
my fridge, I look in my pantry, and I'm like, okay, this is what's going to be my lunch every day this week.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool how you can use the macro approach and still create the not only the flexibility but the consistency in your life. So it's very much like do it yourself with the best guidance possible and feel very free in the process. So I think that's awesome, and you're a really great example of that. And you mentioned, of course, that this helps you a lot through your work days. And we've had, there's so everybody's busy, right? Competing, and a lot of competitors don't
Yeah.
just compete. So I would love to know, like, what are you doing aside from, of course, like meal prepping ahead of time, like scheduling out what you're going to eat on those days? Like, what else do you do on a day-to-day basis to manage your time?
One thing that I do that really helps me is I'm a list person. Um, my mind just constantly swirling with thoughts and things that I need to do or ideas that I have. So I'm a list person, and that's something that really helps to organize my day or my week or my month. I have things in my calendar in my phone with like alerts or reminders, but I also have a written um, planner book as well.
Yeah.
So I'm totally old school with, writing lists, writing things down, seeing it, crossing it off, checking it. That's something that really helps me organize my day or my weekend or my week.
Yes, I'm literally the same way. Like, one, if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. And
Exactly.
like it's just not, like, you can't, it's not. And then like the daily planner, same thing for me, like all even, like I have such a guilty pleasure for the feeling of like crossing something off a list. I'll like add something. I'll like do something else and I'll add it and then just cross it off. I'm like, I did that. Even though it wasn't there before, I just
Yeah.
and I
I do
find
that.
like, right? It's just a satisfying feeling. It's like you're going through your day knowing you're accomplishing and doing the things that are getting you closer to your goals, or it's at least helping you to get done the things that need to get done so that you can take those other bigger action steps. So I'm a list fanatic as well. I'm a huge proponent of it. Um, have you, like, of course, you got your degree in dental hygiene and then you've been working full time in this. So you are very busy, like we just said, and you're using these different things to manage your time and make sure you're prepared. But what got you into the sport in general? Like you mentioned seeing it when you were cheering and dancing, like the stage and the people. Um, but I mean, you've been in the sport for 6 years now. So what what got you into it?
Um, there's several different reasons of why I kind of got involved in it, kind of fell into it, whatever you want to call it. But um, I, being a science mind background, I'm in a, healthcare profession. The whole like idea of, okay, if I do this to my body, whether that's training or nutrition, then you're going to get this result. That to me, like that whole science experiment, like me being my own science experiment, that was the biggest thing. But really at the time in my life that, that's what kind of still drives me is like, it's a challenge, I'm eating this, training this is what I look like, or, whether it's in an off season or in season, but more so kind of the time that I started, this is more of like a personal dive into things, but
Mm-hmm.
at the time in my life that I kind of was like, all right, um, I just need to do something for me. That was more so what it was. I needed a challenge. I needed like an extreme hobby, something that was just for me. I had control over it and something that, made me feel good. So I kind of got into competing after just some things. I call it my quarter life crisis, because I was 25, had just turned 26, and ended up, moving back into my parents for a few months, starting a whole new job at a new office or whatever. And I just felt like a lot of things, like in my personal relationship with my husband, we weren't married at the time, but relationships aren't perfect. And there was just a lot of different things, like things shifting and moving in our relationship, in my career, in where I was living. Just, I don't know, maybe a lot of like 25-ish year olds can kind of relate to this. In your mid 20s, you're kind of figuring out what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So I kind of just got to this point where I was like, I need to do something for me. And that's kind of how I fell into competing. The first show that I did, I had won both open and novice and took home the overall, and I was just hooked from there. Just being able to see that I was able to produce something out of, hard work, dedication, and just consistent, I'm, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Consistent, like, dedication, like things that you did, this is the result. Just
Yes.
that, I don't know, just that personal challenge. And it just gave me mental strength, and not only physical strength, but just that mental strength really not only be applied to the sport itself, but other aspects of life. So professional career, relationships, everything, that mental strength that you gain from competing, just knowing that you can do anything that you set your mind to or your heart, you can get it done.
Yes, I love that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that too, because I was wondering how bodybuilding had helped you just evolve over time personally within your life. And it's cool to hear that that mental strength was so powerful for you and that you were able to find control and passion in that during a time in your life where maybe control was really fleeting. So,
Mhm.
of course, over these years, the sport itself has also changed. So, what have you noticed as some of like the biggest changes from when you started competing to now?
The biggest change, well, I guess I can only speak on my division itself, the
Hmm.
bikini division. If you look at, there are still like the bikini girls that I looked up to in when I first started in 2013, 2014. There's some of them, they're still competing. And a lot of, you can look back and see what they looked like back in 2014, 2015 compared to what they have to look like now. Anyone can say across the board that they're definitely, the NPC and IFBB, they're favoring a more conditioned physique in the bikini division. Also, more muscle maturity and density. And overall, just the division itself, as far as just your overall stage presentation, whether that's your tan, your suit, your posing, everything, like it's top notch. They expect the best of the best, whether that's the national stage or the pro stage. Like you have to bring your A game every single time. And even like the girls that fall into that second, third, or even last call out, like they still look phenomenal. I mean, the quality that's coming to the stage is just so much better than what the division was just 4 or 5 years ago. But I mean, the bikini division has really grown and just way more competitive than it used to be.
Yeah, totally. I think you're right about especially like the quality of what's stepping on stage. And I think part of that comes from like the new standards that the judges have created from the sport and the way it's evolved. I think that's, of course, attracting some people and then um, I guess it'd be deterring others. What do you
Yeah.
think, like, where do you think that the look is going?
I'm not sure because I think that, there's divisions for a reason. Uh, I don't know, the past like couple years, bikinis kind of gotten a little questionable, and even show to show, you're kind of like, well, damn, like that's a lot of muscle to be awarding in a bikini division. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just kind of, there's a lot of different opinions out there, and I'm not really sure, what they're going to do or how they're going to kind of like keep each division in its division as far as like the looks that they're rewarding. Um, I would love to not see bikini get any harder than it is. Harder
Yeah.
meaning like the muscle maturity, the conditioning and leanness that they're rewarding. But like I said, you can look across the board in 2018 shows, and some of the looks are a little bit more extreme than other shows, and that all depends on who shows up. It depends on who your head judge is or who your overall judging panel is. So, I mean, I think for the most part, the NPC and IFBB, they do keep, they keep meeting throughout the year and over the years to make sure that the division itself, bikini, but also other divisions, stays, within the guidelines, the requirements, what they're looking for. It's just tough. It really depends on who shows up and what that, each individual brings.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting to see at the different shows how the placings will vary or what number one, even just the top five in general at one show compared to one that happened maybe the same weekend in a different place. So
Exactly.
yeah, it is interesting. And then you see different divisions emerging, like a wellness division, in some cases, like I believe internationally. And then you see like classic bodybuilding was brought in and it's like, oh my gosh, like it's because the looks were changing within certain divisions that they couldn't be rewarded without the whole division changing. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that they had um, years ago when they added the bikini division, they needed something, they wanted something else. They added men's physique, same thing. They wanted something else. Classic physique was most recently added, and it's just really kind of translates that the sport is growing and that there's more interest and there's more categories to be had. Just to kind of make sure that everyone's in the right place competing. I mean, there's been talk for the past couple of years. I don't know if it's just chatter, but they've, talked about bringing back more of a category that's that old school bikini look, but then also having kind of your current pro bikini look that we have now. So I don't even know how they would differentiate those categories,
Yeah.
or if that's even anything, or if that's just all talk.
That would be a very interesting. In my head, I had a mean comment come up, which I like I keep it really real on this show, but I was thinking they might call that like the Instagram fit girl versus, bikini competitor division because I think there's a difference, right? Especially in the look. There's a lot of girls who are on Instagram, they look phenomenal, but they would not do well in bikini for their shape, for their their muscle mass, some too big of legs or disproportion, but they still look amazing. So I could see
Yeah.
how maybe something could emerge where it's overall like fitness without the extravagant movements.
Yeah, I'm not sure because if you look at like what bikini looks like now versus what even figure looks like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of the pro bikini girls look like what figure used to look like. And same thing evolution wise with figure. The pro figure girls, they have so much beautiful muscle mass. I absolutely love watching figure. It's not a division that I don't think I could ever compete in because I don't think I could ever have that much muscle mass on me. I don't know that it's even possible for me to do naturally. But I mean, it's interesting to watch this sport evolve, and especially as the people that have been in the sport for a long time, as we continue to lift and build our bodies, that's just kind of not, that's what happens.
Yeah.
You just get more muscle mass over time. So I guess the sport's just kind of evolving, and we'll see where it goes, especially with the popularity of it all.
Yeah, totally. I look back on the old photos and I'm like, I could see how that made sense then, but this makes sense now. And for the exact reason you said of like the competitors who are consistently showing up are changing. Not the person themselves, not the different people, but I mean the same people are competing over time. Like you said, like some of them who you looked up to back then for that look are still competing now for a whole different look, but they brought that look. Like they're bringing a new package every time that's then changing those standards because it looks a certain way. And I'm with you. I like the way it looks now. I wouldn't imagine it getting any harder or more conditioned or leaner.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot, like I don't know what that would be, but yeah, I'm with you on that. And I'd love to hear your perspective as well on the social media aspect of this because the sport is evolving and it is growing. But how have you seen social media actually play a role in or impact the sport?
I think the biggest impact that I've seen that I think is really beneficial and that I love, especially, I mean, it is a sport. The IFBB is a professional league. One thing that I have really loved seeing is over the past, well, I guess it's been the past 2 years now, is that they've become more active on social media. So being able to see a live stream of a pro show, you couldn't do that when I first started. It's something that's exciting to watch, especially like with the Olympia or the Arnold, like those things were streamed on a website usually, but individual pro shows that go on, weekend after weekend, we're able to see that on like Instagram Live or just different social media outlets posting to their stories. It's that now ability to be able to see things going on at that moment, even though you're not sitting there. I think that's not only great for me as a competitor, but it's something really interesting for people who just love the sport, that love to watch it, that don't necessarily compete. Just like any other professional sport, it's the entertainment of watching it. So I think that's been a plus as far as social media goes for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I got so excited when they started actually post like the live streams, or I would see
Yeah.
girls posting on their story like footage right there from that day. And it was like so,
Mm-hmm.
or backstage stuff, like really gives you an inside look at the sport beyond the stage shot or what we see going down in the prep. So I think that it's really cool too. I love that. And I think it's also great because it's getting the sport so much exposure and it's solidifying it a lot more. And I think it's giving so many opportunities, like especially within because I know before like you'd have to like send like way back, like people would talk about how they'd have to like send their photos or go to expos and like hand out their photos and business cards to get sponsored, or even just to be noticed or get something for free. Like now people can get a meal prep company on top of a snack company on top of supplements, like so many things. And I know you're associated with a lot of different companies. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. And I'm wondering, one, did social media play a role in that? And then two, like how has that actually helped you financially for competing?
Yeah, social media definitely played a role in it. The two of the companies that I work with are actually right here in Ohio, and those two, one is Lil Buff Protein, which is a lot of what you see is like the cakes, the protein cakes. It's basically a
Yeah,
mix that you
so
add
good.
in three extra ingredients, and you have yourself a protein cake that's like little fat, low carb, and high protein. That's Christine's company. She is in Cleveland, Ohio. And then the other company that I work with is Pam Heisinger Pancakes.
Yeah.
Kind of similar concept. It's just you've got the mix and you add in water, and really that's it. And you've got yourself either pancakes or waffles or whatever you want to use with the baking mix, really. High protein as well, low fat, low carb. Um, she's from Cincinnati, Ohio. So those two I just kind of came into. I mean, I started using the products, really loved it. Um, I do get some commission from them, but not anything crazy. It's any of the commission that I get from any of the sponsors that I work with, it's not supporting my competition career. It's not supporting my life. It's not necessarily paying my bills. I mean, it's a nice percentage to kind of bring home and be able to put towards, my travels for competing or for grocery money, like stuff like that. But it's definitely not something that supports competing or supports paying my bills. That's hence why I work full time as a hygienist and coach clients as well. But my other companies that I work with, like the Shoe Fairy and Toxic Angels, the Shoe Fairy does my jewelry and my shoes for competing. Toxic Angels is my bikinis. Those two are absolutely necessary for me, and it's something that obviously helps me do well when I compete. They are, in my opinion, the two best companies when it comes to shoes, jewelry, and bikinis. Great women behind these companies. I speak with them personally on a day-to-day basis. They're awesome. They started the companies from the ground up. Um, as far as other companies that I work with, Warrior Fuel Supplements, I've been with them for a couple years now. The reason that I fell in love with that company is just the products themselves. They're clean. There's no fillers and artificials. Good feel overall. Good results with them. But again, any of my sponsors, it's just that extra little grocery money or things for like travel. That's really helpful. But it's not necessarily something to make a living on. At least not for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you're keeping it really realistic for people who are listening. I think there's sometimes this misconception that competitors who are sponsored by all these different companies must be doing really well, must not have to work as much, maybe like everything's taken care of and everything's perfect. When in reality, like you said, like that could literally pay for like 10% of your groceries, or it could like go back into investing in those products that you love. Because some
Yeah, it's
what?
really nice to make some commission, off of some of those products, but more so for me, the reason that I work with the companies that I work with is because I like the product, I like the people, and I really believe in it. So that's really more so the reward for me and also for them. It's just that mutual relationship.
Yeah, and I totally get that from you. Like you're so genuine and it sounds like you really want to be able to make an impact in them growing their business and getting exposure for them. And it's like when you believe in something that you are using yourself or you are eating and consuming on a day-to-day basis, it's natural to want to share it. So to then get a kickback from it is just really a bonus. But like you said, I think those relationships and the fulfillment of knowing other people get to have the experience you're having with those products and services, and I think nothing beats that. And I love that you bring up that aspect as well. And I think that's really important to work with companies that you love and people you love and not just do it because, oh, well, you have to become sponsored. You have to like have your name with a number behind it for a discount code on something. Like that's just not the case. And I think it's great that you're representing companies that you love. And I'll make sure that your links and stuff are in the show notes so that they can click it and then find all of those sponsorships and anything so they can try what you're talking about because
Oh,
I've
cool.
seen these things and they sound really good too. So that'll be great for everybody. And I would love to just have you leave us with some advice. I always like to get advice from the people I bring on for someone who is thinking about competing but hasn't yet, and then also advice for someone who is competing and is looking to get their pro card.
Oh, that's a tough one. So as far as someone just kind of like thinking about competing or first-time competitor, I guess my biggest piece of advice is narrow down your why. Why do you want to compete? What are your reasonings for it? And then also making sure that it makes sense. And what I mean by that is, does it make sense with your career, with your, your home life, your family life, your financial even? Does it make sense? And then number one importance is really finding the right coach. Just as with any sport that you dive into, this is an extreme sport. If you're going to be good at it, you've got to make sure that you've got the right coach leading your way, because this sport itself, it does involve a lot with your health, not only your physical health but your mental health as well. So making sure that you find a coach that is going to lead the way for you, lead it right, and lead it smart. And really, there's a lot of great coaches out there that I see, but there are still a handful of really bad ones. I think it's gotten better over the years, for sure. Just like with social media, we're able to kind of know what's good, what's bad, especially with a lot of pros or experienced competitors or coaches kind of putting out more information. We're able to know, what's right, what's wrong, especially with first timers or new competitors. The other piece of advice was for someone wanting their pro card. Was that
Yes.
it? I think the biggest thing for me when I was chasing my pro card is know your weaknesses, know what you need to improve upon, have the right people in your corner, and be realistic with yourself. If your journey might not look the same as the girl standing next to you, you might need to take more time. You might need to take a full year off after, first hitting the stage, or you might be ready to head to the national stage. Like, you've got what it takes, go ahead and go. But that journey is going to look a little bit different for everyone, and just kind of figuring out, are you ready for the national stage, or do you need a little bit more time? And then figuring out what exactly it is that you need to change or build upon or improve upon. But really, once you get up to that national level, just being passionate, putting your heart all in, making no excuses, and just working hard. I really believe that the main reason that I got my pro card is just that I didn't give up. There were so many times where I was told, no, you'll never be a pro, or, it's just not in the cards for you. But if you put your heart to it, you put your mind to it, you can get it done. It's just, don't make excuses. And don't take the shortcut. Just put in the work, spend the time, keep showing up.
I love it. And look at you now. Never gave up. Gonna step on the Arnold stage. Your dream come true. Like, that is powerful. And I love that you practice what you preach. You're living it, and you're great proof of someone who has done both of those things, both at the beginning of your journey and now as well. So I have really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you. We covered so much. Like, I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, this is great. Like, I'm so glad that we got on here and talked. And this is such a great way to kick off February's podcast. So thanks for kicking us off in the positive direction. And I'd love for everybody else to be able to say thank you to you and follow you, or be able to connect with people that you were talking about, whether that's coaching or the sponsors. So if you could just let everybody know where they can find you or work with you or anything like that, that'd be awesome.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Hopefully this was all informational and good, and we didn't lose any listeners there. I know it was a long conversation. It was great chatting with you. It went by, it was like an hour, but it went by so fast.
I know.
Good combo overall. So hopefully I gave you a lot of good content and information. But as far
Mhm.
as finding me or contacting me, I have Instagram is probably what I use the most out of anything. So I'll just do that.
Okay.
It's at Jessie Palmer, IFBB. Um, a lot of times I'll get, DMs or messages or comments, and any of my followers would be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you responded back." Of course, I responded back. If you message me or comment or whatever, I always try to get back to anyone that does send me messages. So totally open to it.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. So, you guys go let her know how much you enjoyed this, how much value she brought. This was a really, really good one and fun and very informative. So, thank you so much. And to everybody listening, I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes on www.celestial.fit/podcast. As usual, there is going to be a category section with Jessie's name in it so that you can go straight to her episode. And if you guys have any requests, people you want to talk to, questions you might have following up, of course, just let us know. And if you do want to become a patron, I just want to say thank you so much. I've had a few people coming in here and subscribing, and it's been so amazing. And I can't tell you how much the support means to me and for running this show. I would do it regardless, but to have your extra support does go a long way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in every single week. I'm going to put that stuff in the episode webpage, of course, as well, too. But thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.